vaporizing it.
Hi guys, and welcome to the next episode of Witches and Wine. And we're going to start this over because y'all screwed everything to start, so... Hi guys, and welcome to the next episode of Witches and Wine. I'm Silent as Stardust, your host this evening. Tonight, Lola is in the studio audience, but she's still recovering from her surgery, so I'll be hosting.
I'm not. God, I'm sick.
She hasn't been healed all the way since her surgery, so she's recovering in some way, shape, or form. Hi guys, and welcome to the next episode of Witches and Wine. I'm Silent as Stardust, your host this evening. Lola is in the studio audience, but is not feeling well, so we'll be doing the hosting. Tonight's guest is Isleen, and we're going to be talking about some elements and elementals. But before we do that, let me talk about tonight's wine. Tonight, I chose La Cote Chateau Pierre. It's a 2010 Bordeaux. It's a 60-40 Merlot Cab Franc blend. Excellent, full-bodied wine. Got nice raspberry and blackberry flavors. Runs about $40 a bottle. 2010 being one of the more desirable years in Bordeaux. So if you want a really elegant, well-crafted, full-bodied wine, come check it out. So that brings me to tonight's subject. We're going to be talking about, as I said, elements and elementals. So what are the four elements, and what are some of the elementals associated with them?
Well, the four elements are earth, air, fire, and water.
Okay.
Different traditions have different associations with each one.
Okay.
But the elementals that are generally associated with them, let's see, there's a couple, I know a couple of traditions myself, but they have gnomes for earth.
Okay.
Air is fairies or sylphs.
What's
Fire,
the difference between a fairy and a sylph?
very little.
Okay, I was gonna say because
Terminology.
It's more the terminology on that.
Honey?
It's right there.
No, it's right in front of you. Right here.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. Go ahead.
And
So,
then
yes,
fire has Jinn or salamanders. And then water is undines or merfolk or watery creatures.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then can't north also be dragons?
That can also be fire too.
Okay.
It kind of just depends on. There's actually, I think I've seen rituals where there are dragons for each
Okay.
direction.
We did that in our old coven, we would say earth dragons, air dragons,
Okay.
fire dragons, water dragons.
Okay.
Didn't we?
And then I know there are different associations based on direction and element. In our coven, we use earth is north, air is east, fire is south, and water is west. And I know that frequently I'm calling the west and the water, which is one of the harder elements for me to work with because, well, I'm a guy and emotions aren't necessarily our strong point. Hey, I'm coming around. I'm getting better, but it's still
You can't use that excuse anymore.
the least comfortable of the four for me.
I think actually it's more comfortable to you than you give yourself credit.
Shh, we're not talking about these things. Now, is there something that you associate with or feel most comfortable calling?
I'm comfortable with air.
Is that because of your sign? We tend to go with the sign.
Yeah.
Our astrological sign.
Well,
Yeah.
mine's definitely an air sign as well.
Yeah.
I also enjoy fire. I think, and I end up calling air or earth a lot and fire a lot. I don't end up doing a lot of water. It probably goes air and then fire and then earth and then water. But the other three seem to be spread out a little bit more evenly than it does with water. And a lot of that is just because I'm willing to share. You know, if people I have a specific direction or quarter that they want to call, I'm like, okay, that's fine. I can just pick up whatever someone doesn't want.
Yeah.
Now, do you think it's good to call all of them, work with all of them to get the rounding out of them?
I prefer to do so, yes, but there are situations where you might want to favor one over the others.
Well, based on what's going on in life or the emotion mindset or...
Yeah, if you're... Well, and then even some of them, it's... you want to be cautious with what you do because you might think that you want fire to help you get the drive and the passion with a job when what you really need is air.
And in the sense of why would you need air in its place of fire in that case?
Because then you're thinking with your brain instead of just going with your drive and just instinct. There is place for
telling
both.
it no, going with the ego instead?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you guys still recording? You gotta check.
Yeah, no, we're still recording.
Okay, making sure.
The technology works on when I use it.
My iPad has left us high and dry 2 videos now. It's
2 weeks in a row. We
We
apologize for last week's episode. We were still talking and we recorded about another 15 minutes, but it didn't actually record, so we apologize. We'll try to make sure that doesn't happen again this week. Now, we were talking about the elements. Is there things that are associated with each of the elements, like fire being passion or determination, or so? What are the things that are generally associated with?
So, north is like stability and home and a foundation and structure, and then air is like intellect and thoughts and studiousness and communication and studies and the internet and intranet.
Yeah.
And then fire is passion and drive and love and lust, and so there's definite overlap between them. And water has your emotions and changes and initiation and mysteries, death. Because death is also an initiation in and of itself, but it's a lot of emotion and a lot of hidden things and shadowy stuff, and I think that's why it's uncomfortable for a lot of people, because it's
all that.
It's not bright and shiny like some of the others.
Well, I don't mind the mystery side and the death side and all that. That's cool. It's that emotion thing that it's hard. It was harder in the past for me to get into it. Now, not quite as much, as Lola was alluding to from the studio audience, like poking at me with my.
Well, because I think that as we get stuck in a idea that, oh, I can't work with that. But when we stop and look, because I used to say that about air.
You cling to your labels that are assigned to you rather than actually
that we assign to ourselves. Mm-hmm. And I would do that with the air elemental, element. I would be like, because it was very logical and it was very male and, projective rather than receptive. Okay. And I work easier with the receptive. And
you do.
About that.
He's definitely a taker.
Yeah, I'm a receiver. But air was so logical to me. And I'm not saying I'm not logical, but it wasn't... I don't know what it was. And then when I started working with it, I realized, oh my God, that's it's communication and ideas and I don't organization and I can do those things, but I would stick to saying, oh no, I can't work with it. So I think that might be
it's kind of weird
with water.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And there's definitely overlap between them, like you say, organization for air, but that would also be very
fire
earth thing.
Or earth, earth. So it just depends on how you're looking at it.
So then there's the concept of the fifth element. Not the movie, awesome movie, but not what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. The Multipass.
Yes, Multipass.
Multipass.
Yes. What is the fifth element, and do you think it's something that celebrators are kind of just accepted?
I like the idea of it, spirit or Akasha, but I think that a lot of people don't necessarily acknowledge it because I think it's just sort of thought of as inherently there because you showed up.
Okay.
Right? So you showed up to the ritual, therefore spirit showed up because you are spirit, we are spirit. We have the spirit that drives us.
So why do we call the elementals into our circle?
Well, we call the elementals in to provide protection of our circle, to set the boundaries and to protect us while we do what we do within.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you think we don't call all just one? Why do we have to call all four? Because if you call just one, they're very... And that's what I wanted to talk about was how they can be
the malevolence or the just the unconstrained nature of an element.
Yeah, because we're working in
Because they're very much they're one thing.
They're that thing. And they're totally that.
It's raw that. There is no filter for it. It is just pure, unadulterated, whatever that element is. Or that it associates with. That's you're going with the purest form of it. So that would make sense.
Yeah.
Why you have to do it. When you're now, there's the ability to invoke an element, which you just did recently, Lola.
Yeah,
elementals.
We do the elemental shrines at the Wiccan Seminary, and
so
I've already done my earth and my fire, and I just did the mermaid.
So what is it like? How different is the energy from an elemental compared to like invoking deity?
It's very, very, very different. Yeah, it's really hard to explain because I've never invoked an elemental until I started working with the school. So it's very different because I always say it's all encompassing. It's all the things and none of the things all at once.
Okay.
It's like everything and nothing. It's so weird. I can't
Contextualize it.
I really can't.
Okay, yeah, because I haven't voted in an elemental, and
I haven't either.
it
It's
sounds
interesting.
It sounds like it'd be pretty intense, just because the pure, just like I said, raw form of nothing to hold it back.
Surprisingly, like I found, invoking a mermaid, I wasn't all that emotional, even though you would think that it's all water, but the mermaid is not going to be all emotion because
And that's a good one.
it is that. She is that thing. So she's not going to be overly emotional or out of control with the emotions because she is that.
She's embraced it.
Yeah. So
She's the embodiment of it.
It's really, it's very interesting.
Okay.
Elemental invocations are really, really interesting.
And there's a reason why you don't do that until later in your training. Because
Yes.
it is very much, you're putting yourself off balance while you do that.
I like how they
That's why
do,
there is all four.
and I like how they do it at the school that way. They do wait till your senior year, and I completely understand because invoking elementals this last year has been, it catches me off guard every single time. Like I may appear like I'm okay while doing it, but there's always something that's like, oh my god, like it brings a new light. Yeah.
Now, within your house, how should you represent the elements? Are we talking shrines? Are we talking real basic, just artifacts or representative pieces? Or what is some of the ways people go about this?
Yes. Whatever works for you.
Painted rocks.
Because some people like to have one main altar where they have a representation for each element on that altar.
Okay.
Some people like to have altars that are set up for each element / elemental. Some people, I don't think there's anyone who doesn't have any sort of representation, although I'm sure there's someone out there who has some austere altar that is just like the bare minimum. But even then, I think that especially within at least Wiccan circles, you're going to have a representation of the elements.
Well, we're kind of taught that that's an important
part of the orthopraxy.
Yeah.
Now, I know there is some discussion. Deborah Lipp's Elements of Ritual talks about how, like, you can't have a blue candle for West because that's not water.
Yeah,
She gets kind of...
So, because a flame is not water.
Because a flame is not water.
Yeah.
So you would need instead to have like a pool of water or a cup full of water or some physical water.
Seashell.
Or seashell.
And then you run into... There are ways around it. If we're going... That's a nice segue. I know people who live in apartments who can't have fire. They can't have candles. They can't burn incense. Feathers work really well for air.
Yeah.
You can have something that looks like a flame for your representation for fire. There are ways around it. You don't have to have the actual physical, like...
Yeah, you don't need a physical fire in your house.
And some people associate with what we use because it's also in our tarot.
Yeah, say in the
spreads,
tarot.
our tarot cards we
now,
do.
How do they correlate?
Well, now that depends on your school of thought, because there's the whole thing with
Some say wands are fire, some say wands are air.
yeah.
Some say swords are air, some say
The
swords
one
are
that
fire.
that have been pretty consistent is cups is
Water.
water
And
and
pentacles or coins is earth.
is earth.
Okay.
But fire and air have interchanged.
When you guys do your readings, how do you look at it?
Well, when I first started doing readings, I did it. Fire was blades, and air was wands. And then I switched it. I don't remember when. And then the school teaches it that way too. And then it just resonated with me.
Okay, and how about
Better.
you? How do you do?
Sometimes it depends on who I'm
Sometimes it
reading
depends
for.
on the deck.
Yeah.
Because there are some decks where the artist has created it to be where
apparent,
wands are supposed to, yeah. Rider-Waite deck is one that makes sense to me, where wands would be fire because the cards are very fiery.
Okay.
And your swords are very airy. You see people who have a sword in their hand, but then their hair is all tousled by the
Or they're
wind.
winged or whatever.
And it's
Something,
just, it's so, they're very clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also kind of always liked, and this comes from a high school thing, I always liked the debate on wands versus where swords would go in the circle as well, because I always really liked my blades, so I loved the idea that they would go in with air, because that meant they were with my element. I got
See, yeah. There you go. Yeah, and that's
So-
how we set ours. I mean, we do blades.
We've used wands in place of fire and blades.
And blades is air. Yeah. Which again, you know.
It makes sense for our coven. If it doesn't
Yeah.
make sense for you guys' coven, we're not judging. We're not saying which one's right.
No,
it just works
there-
right for
there's
us.
those interchangeable, just
Yeah.
like the directions.
Yeah.
The
Open up to interpretation.
Yeah, and there's also sometimes I'll look at a obvious earth card, but I might get
very
some
emotional,
full
something,
emotions
yeah.
from it, and I'm like, I'm gonna go with this, you know. So, but that's a whole different. That's tarot reading. So yeah, but it's all interchangeable. I mean, there's a reason why we work with
Well,
elements.
and because there's overlap between, like we talked about before, because sometimes you're going to pick up more on one side of that particular element than you will on the other. Someone may be, you know, having some really emotional time, and that's a time to kind of work with water a little bit more. Take a bath.
Yeah.
Make sure you drink your water. I'm a big one on that, because that's the easiest way to connect with water, is to drink your water.
Yeah. Does liquid count?
Water.
Water.
Liquid.
That's earth and water.
What, wine?
Yeah.
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 And a little bit of air, because fermentation is a thing.
And fire.
And fire from
Brewing
the sun.
is all magic.
Well,
It's
and-
all alchemy.
Well, and the sun to make the grape grow.
Yeah, you have your
and-
fire.
Great balls
Yeah.
of fire
Yeah.
that lives in the sky and sometimes likes to blind us here down on Earth.
We didn't
Or
do
burn
a
us.
drink at all.
We
Well,
have
here's
not
a
done
clue.
any.
Well, we had 3 earlier on the first taping, but none of that got recorded.
We clunked and drunk the.
Clanked and drank.
I almost wore that. Clunked and drunk.
Oh my god.
Clank and drank.
Clank and drank. Clunk and drunk. Clinker and drinker.
All right, guys. Well, can anyone else have anything else to add or questions or anything?
No, I think
Ready?
we covered them all.
All right,
Yeah.
awesome. Well, if you guys have any questions or care to be a guest on the episode of an upcoming episode, get a hold of us at crossroadscoven
At
gmail.com.
What was that again?
Crossroadscoven at
gmail.com.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.
Bye.